Well, a critical ocean monitoring system off the coast of Washington is now on the chopping block, and scientists warn it could put this region at risk. The Trump administration planning to scale back the Ocean Observatories Initiative, a $368 million network with instruments off the coasts of Washington and Oregon. Those sensors don't just track climate change. They also monitor underwater conditions in a region where earthquakes and seismic activity are a constant concern. The system has been operating for nearly a decade now, and experts say that shutting it down now creates dangerous blind spots. Joining us today is seismologist Harold Tobin from the University of Washington, also the director of the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. Well, first, just your reaction to this decision to take these systems away.
Well, this decision is really bad news, and it's really short-sighted. I think there is a bright spot. I'll tell you about it in a second. But you know, it's just one more of the many ways in which the science enterprise in the USA, which we're the world leaders in, is just being sort of cut down and cut down.
What does it mean for Washington's earthquake and tsunami risk to not have this?
Yeah, so this is where the actual bright spot is, and some of the reporting has been a little unclear. Most of the Ocean Observatory Initiative is being dismantled. The part that is our cabled system off the coast of the Pacific Northwest for earthquake and tsunami monitoring and the axial volcano is all actually still in scope. They're going to keep that part operating. So the parts that we depend on for the earthquake monitoring is still, so far at least, okay and not being cut. A bunch of the other systems that are part of that very sophisticated, really most sophisticated in the world, Ocean Observatory, are being cut though.
So the pieces that are being cut, what do we need to understand about how that will impact what you're able to see and teach us about what's going on in the waters off of our coast?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just that, you know, this is really the most sophisticated system that studies the underwater conditions, temperature, salinity, pressure, how the currents flow, and even things like the sounds that whales make, you know, so that we can track them in the ocean and see them. And a number of the systems that are really designed to study the water, as opposed to like the earthquake faults underneath the water, are the ones that are on the chopping block right now. We have potentially one of the largest El Niños that's ever really been observed beginning right now, and it's the wrong time to be taking the sensor systems that can actually study that out of the ocean. So that's the real downside of this. It's short-sighted in the sense that a huge amount of US investment was made in this, and now pulling the plug on it just really doesn't help us.
What does it mean that you can't figure out what the El Nino might really be telling us because these systems are gone? Like, break it down in layman's terms for us. Why is it important to know that?
Yeah, if you think about, the ocean is 3/4 of the surface of the Earth, right? And it's miles deep in most places. And all of that, we need to understand what the temperature is, how the currents are flowing. All of those are how we know something about what's actually happening to the circulation in the ocean and the fact that that's connected to weather and climate and everything else that happens in the atmosphere.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a recent UW study that I know you're well aware of about the waters acidifying in the Northwest faster than other places in the world. So removing these systems, does it impact how you're able to monitor that? And why is that important to us?
Yeah, my understanding is that that is part of it, because the mooring systems, these basically cables that run from the seafloor right up through the water to measure all of these properties of the ocean, are one of the ways in which we know a lot about things like the acidity of the water. And so, if you don't have eyes on something, you really can't, first of all, know that it exists, and then second of all, understand, what's driving it, so therefore how we can mitigate for it. It's like if we took all the satellites out of space, we wouldn't be able to forecast weather and hurricanes and stuff like that. It's the same sort of thing, but under the oceans.
Clearly there's a scientific impact. Is there a public safety impact by removing the system?
I mean, I think potentially so, yeah, absolutely. Because, again, it's all part of the way in which we have a really good sense of really what's going on, and therefore can make better, more accurate forecasts further into the future of all of these properties, of all these things that are happening.
So as a scientist, a seismologist, where do you go from here without that system? I mean, how do you sort of adjust to the sort of changing political environment around this issue?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing is just, I'm thankful. I feel like it's a silver lining in an otherwise bad piece of news that they have seen fit to keep the earthquake monitoring system active, and that we expect to continue to be active for a number of years. In fact, this summer, we're going to put new seismometers on the seabed as part of this OOI system, and that's still going ahead, as far as we know, everything we've heard so far. So I'm hopeful that that part of it at least will be preserved, but I don't like to see the other parts of it. Science is one big enterprise, and it's all interconnected in lots of ways.
And then what happens more broadly, like looking 10 years out, when you dismantle systems like this? This has been in place for a decade now. When you dismantle it, 10 years from now, what's the impact for us?
Yeah, you know, we need to know things by measuring them year after year after year very continuously. Long-term records are a really important part of, if you know the past, you can help understand the future better. So that's one big impact. And any of these systems where we've invested that much time, why would we want to stop now? And then the second one is the fact that, you know, it's a generation of scientists that won't have access to data. New upcoming people who are being trained and becoming the next generation of people who work on this stuff won't have access to the same cutting edge technology that, you know, other countries are trying to put in. The US has been a leader, and we're just sort of giving it up voluntarily. It doesn't make any sense.
And just so our viewers understand, this is not about whether you believe in climate change or not. It's really about monitoring what's happening on the Earth so that we can make good decisions. Right?
Yeah, that's genuinely true. It genuinely isn't just about anything about whether you believe in climate change or not. It's about understanding the planet and how it works so that we can do a better job of, you know, protecting life here on the planet and mitigating against those hazards that come from the Earth around us.
Harold Tobin, so great to have you in studio. Really appreciate you coming in, and your insights just invaluable to us here in the Northwest.
Thanks for having me.
Really across the country. Thank you.
Yeah.